was still bleeding when she found out. Tears, milk, betrayal, everything pouring from her body at once, just 2 days after giving birth to Ava and Mark's baby. She found Ava's earrings tangled in her husband's bedsheets. Not just any earrings. The gold leaf ones she gave Ava on her birthday. The same pair Ava wore to the delivery room. She nearly threw up, but her body was already empty. She had nothing left to give, except revenge. Let's rewind. 9 months earlier, Sarah had offered her body, her health, her entire soul, to help her best friend become a mother. She didn't ask for money. She didn't need fame. She just believed in love, loyalty, and doing the right thing. But what Ava wanted wasn't just a baby. She wanted Sarah's life, her peace, her marriage, her husband, and Daniel, the man who once kissed stretch marks and called them beautiful, was now sneaking out at midnight, while Sarah massaged her swollen feet and tried to ignore the silence. She should have seen it. The looks between Ava and Daniel when they thought she wasn't watching, the late-night texts that always got deleted, the way Ava suddenly started calling Daniel her rock. But when you're carrying someone else's child, you focus on staying alive, not on how the people you love are killing you quietly. Then came the night, the blood, the delivery, and 2 days later, the betrayal. Sarah stood in the nursery Ava had decorated, holding the blanket she'd knit stitch by stitch, and in that silence, she made a choice. If they wanted to play dirty, she'd bury them both, because revenge is best served with legal custody and a secret of her own. Before the betrayal, before the baby, Sarah believed her life was full. She and Daniel had been married for 6 years. A quiet marriage, built on Sunday mornings, shared playlists, and inside jokes no one else understood. They weren't flashy, they weren't rich, but they had each other, or so she thought. Daniel worked as a graphic designer from home, quiet, clever, always humming old rock songs under his breath. Sarah was a nurse, organized, steady, always putting others first. They had been trying for a baby once, until the miscarriages came. 3, to be exact. After the third one, they stopped trying, stopped talking about it. Sarah buried the grief. Daniel just drifted. And then there was Ava, Sarah's best friend since college. They met in Anatomy 101 and never let go. Ava was wild, magnetic, the kind of woman who made strangers spill secrets at gas stations. She married Mark, an up-and-coming tech consultant, and moved 3 blocks away from Sarah. Their friendship was loud, messy, full of wine nights and shared memories. Ava had everything Sarah didn't: the perfect house, the luxury car, the expensive nails. But she never had children. Endometriosis, she said. The treatments failed. The adoption fell through. And Sarah, carrying her own loss, felt called to help. "Be our surrogate," Ava whispered one night after too much wine. "It would mean the world to us." Mark nodded. Daniel stayed silent. Sarah thought about it for weeks. Then she said yes. Because what do you do when your best friend is breaking, and you have the one thing she never could? You offer your body as a gift. You try to rewrite your own pain by healing someone else's. The months that followed were hard, but beautiful. Ava came to every appointment. She rubbed Sarah's back during morning sickness. She cried when she heard the heartbeat. She made a nursery with yellow walls and cloud-shaped mobiles. Sarah felt useful again, needed, loved. But something was off. Mark grew distant. Daniel started working late. And Ava began showing up without knocking, calling Daniel Dan, laughing at his jokes like they were private. One day, Sarah caught them sharing a quiet glance across the kitchen. Too long, too familiar. But she told herself not to be paranoid. She told herself it was the hormones. She had no idea. Not yet. Not until blood, betrayal, and a pair of gold earrings would tear it all open. It didn't happen all at once. It started with a look. Too long, too soft. Daniel was cutting apples for Sarah's prenatal snack. Ava reached over to grab a slice, and their hands brushed, just a second too long. They both laughed. But it wasn't the kind of laugh Sarah knew. It was quieter, private. Then came the text tones. Ava's phone would ping at 11 p.m., and she'd smile down at it, fingers flying. When Sarah asked who it was, Ava just said, "Group chat," then flipped the screen over. One evening, Sarah came home from a routine checkup. She found Daniel and Ava in the backyard, sitting too close on the garden bench, whispering about something that made Ava giggle like a teenager. Daniel pulled back as soon as he saw Sarah. His face stiffened. He stood up too quickly, knocking over the glass of lemonade at his feet. "Didn't expect you back so soon," he said, not even asking about her appointment. A few nights later, Sarah's back was aching. She woke up alone in bed. Daniel was downstairs, but not in the living room. He was on the porch, whispering into his phone. She caught 3 words before he noticed her shadow through the glass. "You miss me too." When he saw her, he smiled too fast. "Just talking to a client," he said. At midnight? She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe her hormones were making her paranoid. Wanted to believe she wasn't being betrayed by the 2 people she trusted most. But denial is a dangerous drug. It numbs the truth until it breaks through like a scream in the dark. The next day, Ava showed up wearing Daniel's old hoodie, the gray one with the tiny bleach stain on the sleeve. Sarah blinked. Her breath caught, but Ava acted like it was nothing. "Oh, I grabbed it from your laundry basket. I was freezing." She said it so casually, so practiced. Sarah laughed along, but inside, something started unraveling. Then Mark stopped coming. He used to walk Ava to the door, kiss her on the forehead, wave at Sarah. Now? Nothing. He didn't even respond to Sarah's messages checking in. Ava said he was stressed with work. But she wouldn't look Sarah in the eyes when she said it. One morning, Sarah found an earring on the hallway floor. Not hers. Gold. Delicate. A leaf-shaped drop design. It looked familiar. Too familiar. Ava wore a pair just like them. Sarah picked it up and said nothing. Because now, she wasn't just watching. She was waiting. It was supposed to be just another day. Abby had planned a surprise brunch for their 5-year anniversary, a quiet morning at home, her homemade lemon ricotta pancakes, and a little scrapbook she'd spent weeks putting together, filled with photos and ticket stubs from their travels. But Carter was late, 2 hours late. When he finally walked in, he looked shaken. Sweaty palms, slightly out of breath, and a weird cologne she didn't recognize. "Sorry," he said, kissing her cheek quickly. "Work emergency." That explanation would have been enough, except his phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and again. Abby wasn't the jealous type. She'd never snooped, never asked to see his texts, but something about the way he snatched his phone, turned off notifications, and forced a smile. It hit differently. During brunch, he barely touched his food. He kept glancing at his watch like he wanted to be somewhere else. Finally, she asked, "Is everything okay?" Carter blinked, like the question surprised him. "Of course, why wouldn't it be?" And then came the laugh, too loud, too fake. He changed the subject. Later that night, as Abby was putting away dishes, she noticed a tiny lipstick stain on his collar. Not hers. A subtle coral shade she never wore. She stood frozen in the kitchen. It was small. So small. But it cracked something wide open. It started subtly. So subtly that Claire almost blamed herself for noticing. It wasn't some lipstick on his collar or a mysterious text message. It was the quiet shift of attention. The way Daniel's eyes skimmed past hers too quickly when they kissed. The way his hands felt colder, his hugs shorter. She remembered the night he forgot her birthday. Not completely, he bought a cake. But it was a store-bought one, in the wrong flavor, with the name Clara iced across it. He laughed it off, said it was a funny mistake. But Claire didn't laugh. She'd always hated coconut. Then came the new cologne. It wasn't her style, too musky, too bold. When she asked about it, he shrugged. Just felt like switching things up. He never used to care about cologne. Now he wore it even to take out the trash. Claire started noticing how often his phone was face down, or how he suddenly began taking his showers the moment he got home, something he never did before. One night, she reached out to touch his arm in bed, and he flinched. It wasn't violent. It was distant. She stared at the ceiling that night, 1,000 unspoken questions hanging above her like ghosts. Maybe it was stress. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was her. But deep down, a whisper in her gut was starting to scream. This wasn't love cooling off. This was love being redirected. Her dreams of growing old together, wrinkled hands, morning coffee, retirement road trips, they all began to feel like someone else's story. She told herself she was overthinking. He was just tired. She was just sensitive. But the lies she fed herself tasted more bitter each day. Claire had no proof, no smoking gun, but her heart knew. And sometimes, that knowing hurts more than the truth. It was in that frozen, agonizing moment, standing in the middle of her crumbled kitchen, that Savannah's pain twisted into something else. Not sorrow, not despair, but clarity. Everything suddenly snapped into focus. She wouldn't let this end with her crying in a rented house while Daniel lived his double life unchecked. No, he didn't just break her trust. He gambled her loyalty, her body, her years, on a lie. And now it was time to make him pay. Savannah wasn't the type to scream or smash windows. Her revenge would be sharper, silent, swift. She had always been underestimated. Too sweet, too supportive, too soft for war. Good. Let them think that. She began moving fast, like a woman possessed by purpose. Within a week, her entire life was rerouted toward one mission: ruin Daniel, piece by piece, without him even seeing it coming. She started with the house. The deed was still in both their names. Daniel had convinced her not to split the title officially when they bought it. No need, he said. We're partners. Now that lie would cost him dearly. With the help of her lawyer friend, she filed a claim, quietly freezing the property from being sold or refinanced without her consent. That house? It was about to become her trap. Next came Daniel's job. Savannah knew exactly which firm his real estate deals depended on, the private firm that handled 80% of his escrow business. What Daniel didn't know was that the woman who ran that firm used to be Savannah's mentor. All it took was one coffee meeting. She didn't even have to reveal everything. Just a few well-placed concerns about Daniel's conflicts of interest, and a hint that legal scrutiny might soon follow. That same week, Daniel's biggest accounts began to pause operations. His pipeline? Drying up, and he had no idea why. Then, the most painful strike. Savannah waited until Daniel was out of town, on a business trip she knew was actually a weekend with Sabrina. She logged into their shared storage drive and printed every transaction, every receipt, every fake business dinner that was actually a hotel with Sabrina. Then she packed all of it, neatly, into a manila envelope. But she didn't send it to Daniel. She sent it to Sabrina's husband. For a while, everything seemed normal. Michael stopped coming home late. No more lipstick stains, no mysterious texts. He was attentive, even oddly cheerful, as if someone had flipped a switch inside him. He brought home groceries. He offered to cook. He rubbed Emily's feet at night like he used to when they first dated. And for a moment, Emily allowed herself to believe. She convinced herself that maybe her rage had scared him straight. Maybe the silent tension, the cold dinners, and her deadpan stares had sobered him up. That guilt had bloomed into some form of redemption. He even suggested they take a weekend trip upstate. You need a break, he said. We both do. Emily smiled politely and nodded, but deep inside, her instincts screamed. Because there were cracks in this peaceful mask, like how he still kept his phone face down, how he still got jumpy when she entered the room unannounced, or how he'd disappear for hours under the excuse of gym time, but came back without a drop of sweat, or the strange charge on the credit card from a downtown boutique she'd never been to, one known for luxury lingerie. Still, Emily said nothing. She played along. She smiled at his gestures. She let him think the waters had calmed. But every night, while he snored beside her, she lay awake, rehearsing, planning, because this time she wouldn't explode. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't beg. This time, she would burn it all down slowly, from the inside. And the best part? He'd never even see it coming. It was subtle, almost too subtle. A single detail Michael forgot to clean up, because that's how most liars get caught. Not in the grand lies, but in the lazy ones. Emily hadn't spoken much that week. She kept her tone neutral, her movement smooth. She didn't accuse, didn't question, just observed. Until one morning, while folding laundry, she found a receipt tucked into the back pocket of his jeans. It wasn't just a receipt. It was for a prenatal massage, dated 2 days ago, time-stamped during the exact hours Michael said he was at the bank handling mortgage papers. And the name on it? S. Rivera, Sabrina's last name. Emily froze. Her heart didn't race. It slowed, not because she was afraid, but because everything made sense now. He didn't just cheat. He got her pregnant. All this fake peace. The weekend trip, the homemade dinner, the sudden guilt-laced affection. It wasn't reconciliation. It was cover-up. He thought he could fix it, clean the mess behind her back, buy time until Sabrina handled it. But Michael had slipped, and now, the one thing he feared most was already happening. Emily wasn't angry anymore. She was calculating. She took a photo of the receipt, stored it in a folder named Judgment Day. Then she calmly placed the receipt back into the pocket, because she wanted him to find it missing. She wanted him to feel the dread creeping in, to start guessing. Does she know? What did she see? Is she going to leave? No, Michael. She wasn't going to leave. She was going to stay just long enough to watch you fall. The court hearing was scheduled on a Thursday morning. Clear skies outside, but inside, the air was thick with tension. Claire walked into the courthouse not just as a woman seeking divorce, but as a storm ready to unleash everything she had. She had spent weeks preparing. Her lawyer had compiled a meticulous timeline: photos, text messages, witness statements, and the full financial records of Anthony's hidden accounts. Every dirty secret, every transaction with Serena, every lie he had spun. It was all neatly documented. But Claire didn't just want a divorce. She wanted accountability. As Anthony entered the courtroom with Serena by his side, yes, she had the audacity to show up. Claire's eyes didn't flinch. Her expression was icy calm, but her silence screamed 1,000 battles fought and survived. The judge glanced through the documents. Then he looked up and asked, "Mr. Anthony Patterson, are you aware that joint assets were hidden from your spouse during the marriage?" Anthony tried to spin it, but it was useless. Claire's lawyer clicked through slide after slide: luxury watch purchases, hotel receipts, bank transfers to Serena's account. The real blow came when Serena was asked to take the stand. And under oath, she cracked. "I didn't know he was married at first," she admitted. "But you stayed after you found out?" Serena's silence confirmed everything. The courtroom gasped. Claire watched, steady and unbroken. The judge ruled Claire would receive 75% of all marital assets. Anthony was fined for financial fraud within marriage. Full custody of Lily was awarded to Claire, with supervised visits granted to Anthony once a month, pending psychological evaluation. And Serena? She would be investigated separately for her role in laundering funds from Claire's business. Anthony tried to protest, his voice cracking as he begged for leniency. But Claire? She stood, turned her back, and walked out before he finished his sentence. It wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about reclaiming every part of herself he tried to erase. Just when Monica thought her life couldn't spiral any lower, fate flipped the script. It started with a phone call from a blocked number. She ignored it. Then another one. And another. On the fourth call, she picked up. The voice on the other end was raspy, familiar, terrifyingly familiar. Monica, you don't know me, but I know everything about you, and your husband, and your sister. Click. The line went dead. Chills shot down her spine. She stood frozen, phone in hand, pulse racing. It wasn't the threat that scared her. It was the truth buried behind it. That night she found a yellow envelope tucked inside her mailbox. No return address, no markings. Inside, photos. Dozens of them. James, Rachel, hotels, restaurants. Nights together while she was at home crying over her failing health. But there was one photo that stopped her heart cold. It was a picture from 2 years ago, taken inside their bedroom. James was sitting on the edge of the bed, shirtless. Rachel was holding up Monica's wedding dress and laughing. That was the same week Monica had suffered a miscarriage, and James had told her he was on a business trip. Suddenly, the math clicked. The timeline, the lies, the manipulation. But then came the final blow. A handwritten note stapled behind the photos. 4 words, in red ink. They planned it all. She reread it 10 times. Each time, her heart sank deeper. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was a setup. From the very beginning. They used her. They took her love, her money, her trust, just to build their perfect little life. And the twist? The person who sent the photos? Wasn't a stranger at all. When the day of reckoning finally arrived, it wasn't with fire or fury. It was with silence. A week after the divorce papers were filed, Natalia requested a formal mediation meeting with Aaron and his lawyer. She came in wearing all black, calm, composed, lethal. She handed over a printed portfolio. Inside were copies of the text messages, the hotel receipts, a detailed timeline of the affair, along with copies of invoices proving Aaron had been funneling company funds to wine and dine Alana during corporate trips. Aaron laughed. "You think this little show scares me?" Natalia didn't flinch. She turned to the mediator and said, "This is my formal motion to launch a full audit of our joint business. I've already contacted the SEC. The air went dead. Even Aaron's attorney froze. "I also sent a packet," she added, "to 3 of our biggest investors. They're reviewing it as we speak." Aaron's face turned gray. "But don't worry," she said with a cutting smile. "I'm not suing you for cheating. I'm suing you for breach of fiduciary duty." Alana, who had come to support Aaron, turned white. This wasn't personal anymore. This was war on paper. And Aaron? He was cornered in a battle he never even trained for. But Natalia wasn't done. The next morning, a full exposé ran in a mid-level industry newsletter. Not tabloids, just professional enough to tank investor trust. It outlined allegations of financial misconduct in Aaron's business, subtly referencing a relationship with a subordinate. By noon, 3 partners had dropped out. By Friday, a government audit was officially underway. By the following week, Aaron was removed as CEO by the board. And Natalia? She quietly bought out his shares, at their now rock-bottom value. She didn't scream, she didn't threaten. She just pulled every string, exposed every hidden fault line, and let his empire collapse under the weight of his own arrogance. 1 month later, Aaron was broke, investigated, and alone. Natalia, meanwhile, launched a new agency, And guess who she hired as her lead PR director? Alana. But not out of kindness, because Alana had secrets too, and Natalia had evidence. Alana became her puppet, a walking reminder that Natalia didn't just win, she rewrote the entire battlefield. And Aaron? He now drives a used car, lives in a rented apartment, and scrambles to book consulting gigs with small-time firms that won't ask too many questions. Every time he opens his email, there's another fallout to clean up. Every time he sees Natalia on a podcast or on a Forbes article, the humiliation cuts deeper. She didn't just take revenge, she took everything. It's been almost 3 years now. 3 years since that courtroom showdown, since the ink dried on our divorce papers, and since I finally exhaled after holding my breath for so long. People always ask me if I miss the life I used to have. The mansion, the private jets, the status. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes miss the convenience, the security. But what I don't miss is being invisible in my own marriage. I don't miss having to shrink myself so a man could feel taller. After the scandal, Marcus's life imploded fast. He lost clients, endorsements, respect. And the final nail? His name now trends online for the wrong reasons. The man who cheated on his wife with a fake heiress and lost everything. Some say I was cruel, that I went too far. But they didn't hear me crying in the dark, night after night, begging the universe to tell me what I did wrong. They didn't see me rebuild myself piece by piece, alone. And they sure as hell didn't watch him build his empire on my sacrifice. I used to think revenge was about hurting the other person, about making them bleed the way they made you bleed. But I've learned something deeper. Real revenge is living well. It's thriving unapologetically. It's walking into a room and no longer wondering if you're enough. It's building a life so beautiful, so full, that you forget their name until someone brings it up and you just laugh. Today I run my own consulting firm. I help other women, smart, capable women, who've been burned, betrayed, or silenced, find their power again. And the best part? I do it without bitterness, because I've let go. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. I look at my reflection now, and I see someone who fought like hell to come home to herself. Someone who found freedom not in payback, but in clarity. And someone who learned that sometimes losing everything was exactly what she needed to finally become everything. Some betrayals don't just end a relationship, they end the person you used to be. When Grace discovered Dylan's secret family, it didn't just break her heart, it shattered her identity. But instead of drowning in the pain, she rebuilt herself from the wreckage, stronger, wiser, and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Her revenge wasn't about hate. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her power, and the years he stole from her. Because sometimes, walking away isn't justice. Sometimes, justice means making sure they lose more than they ever took from you. What would you have done if you were Grace? Was her revenge too much? Or not enough? Let us know in the comments. And remember, not every broken heart stays broken forever.